Welcome back. This critique is based on a deep dive into James Charles's decade-long history of controversies and PR tactics, really examining why his career thrives despite everything. So let's just jump right in. The first thing that really stands out is this. While the moral outrage in the material is completely justified, the constant use of really emotional and inflammatory language might actually be undermining its persuasive power.
Right. I mean, the research is incredible. Dramageddon, the 2025 allegations, all the deleted videos. It's a massive undertaking.
It is, but that factual weight, all that hard work, is being obscured by what I'd call rhetorical heat.
Exactly. The facts are the signal, but the intense language, calling journalism disgraceful or saying things like bonkers or I'm calling bullshit, that's all noise.
And for people who already know the story, that's fine. It's compelling.
For sure, they're on board. But for a new listener, someone looking for a definitive analysis, it can make it feel more like an opinion piece.
Which is a shame, because it's so much more than that. It's an authoritative historical document.
So the suggestion is basically to pull back a bit, adopt a more analytical, almost clinically restrained tone.
Yes, the idea is to let the facts, especially the subject's own admissions, which are chilling, let them drive the conclusion for the listener.
You want the listener to feel the outrage naturally from the evidence, not because they're being told how to feel, right?
Exact. That clinical distance is what gives it maximum impact. It puts all the judgment squarely on the subject's own actions and words.
Okay, so let's take a concrete example. The analysis of the Cosmopolitan interview.
Perfect example. Right now, there's a lot of time spent on a personal critique of the journalist, the perceived bias, what the host calls the millennial word salad.
And that's all about the journalism's failure, not the subject's manipulation.
Right. So a more effective way to use that time would be to replace those reactions with a really precise, controlled analysis of the subject's own words in that interview.
You mean like that specific quote where he's talking to himself?
Yes, exactly that one, where he says, "Okay, babe, this is your fault. No, you're not a P-word. No, you're not a groomer. No, you're not a predator. But you made a big mistake."
I see. So instead of criticizing the interviewer, you deconstruct that sentence.
Yes, you break down how he minimizes everything down to just a big mistake while simultaneously denying the more serious labels.
So you're showing the manipulation in action, using his own language. That's way more powerful.
It keeps the focus squarely on him, and it turns the whole piece from this impassioned documentary into like an unassailable legal brief.
A brief made entirely of primary evidence.
Yeah, that tone shift would immediately boost the authority of the whole thing.
Okay, so we cool down the rhetoric. Now let's talk about structure, because all that amazing research is getting a little bit buried.
I was thinking the same thing.
The material has this exceptionally specific, hard-hitting evidence, but the flow is constantly getting derailed by tangential discussions, personal stories, and meta-commentary about making the show itself.
I agree completely. The depth of research is it's unparalleled. You can tell the host lives and breathes this stuff.
But the momentum is always being broken. I'm thinking of, the detailed discussions about the creation process, the long sponsor reads for Rocket Money, or even personal updates, like studying for a driving theory test.
The argument just becomes exhaustive instead of focused. So the main suggestion here is to be surgically precise with the narrative.
Every single segment has to either advance the main thesis about manipulation, or it has to introduce relevant evidence.
Everything else gets cut.
Okay, but let me push back on that for a second. If you cut all the personal stuff, like the driving test bit, do you risk it sounding too cold? Isn't the conversational style part of the appeal?
That's a fair point, but I think the conversational style comes from the host's personality and delivery, which is already there. The problem isn't the tone. It's the segments that are completely unrelated to the topic. I mean, when you're dealing with a subject this serious, a decade of alleged predatory behavior, the gravity just demands constant focus.
So any tangent about personal grievances or future shows, just what distracts from the evidence?
It kills the velocity. It lets the air out of the room. So all that structural fat has to go.
That makes sense. Let's use the Evan Johnson and Kayla Millick situation as a test case.
A crucial.
Right now, the analysis of that betrayal gets really complicated. It gets sidetracked into debates about what other commentators are saying, like the Be Better podcast, or the host's own changing opinion on it.
Yeah, there's too much of the internal editorial process left in the final cut. The listener expects that to have happened before hitting record.
So the actionable advice is to structure that section strictly around the core facts that prove the manipulative behavior.
Exactly. Just the evidence. Point one. James gets that text from Kayla saying Evan did the worst things a human can do. Undeniable.
Point 2. James then immediately starts a very public friendship with Evan, and they bond over being lied about.
And 3. James tries to downplay Kayla's warning, claiming he thought her messages were just, humorous, or someone coping with a messy breakup.
Right. Just sticking to those 3 points proves the thesis without getting lost in the weeds critiquing other critics.
It keeps the focus laser sharp. The story is about the subject's calculated behavior, not a documentary about making the documentary.
You remove the scaffolding to showcase the building itself. I like that.
Okay, so our last point moves from the how of the delivery to the what of the argument. It's about sharpening the sociological thesis over just giving a biography.
Okay.
The central argument that James Charles is a case study in the failure of cancel culture is powerful, but the material feels more like a history report. It doesn't fully analyze why the manipulation actually works on a platform level.
That's a really crucial distinction.
Yeah, it's the difference between saying, this happened and he survived, and explaining, this is how the platform itself let him survive.
I see. So the weakness is that the conclusion kind of lands on generalities, like he's a skilled manipulator or the audience lacks critical thinking, which are true, but
they're not the whole story. The analysis doesn't dig into the specific mechanics of his survival.
especially how his tactics have evolved for modern media, for TikTok.
Right. So the suggestion is to refocus the final part of the work, to use his history as evidence for a deeper critique of how we consume media online now. Analyze how his tactics are optimized for TikTok's, fleeting low-attention environment versus the old YouTube model he left behind.
Okay, so this is where we really elevate the piece. I can see that. So let's take those two admissions the material already covers. Him using his For You page as a dating app, and admitting to being desperate in that deleted 2021 video.
Right now, they're treated as personal failings. We need to elevate them.
And analyze them not just as mistakes, but as evidence of a calculated PR system.
Yes, a system designed to manage these recurring crises. Think about the apology template.
The groveling apology video, which gets deleted, followed immediately by the combative, self-defensive, No More Lies video.
That set the template for everything. We saw it again in 2021 with the admission of messaging minors, followed by another deleted accountability video, and then that vague open conversation that basically avoided the issue.
So it's not spontaneous damage control, it's a calculated, repeatable strategy.
And that strategy is perfectly suited for today's algorithm. Let's talk about muddying the waters.
Right. You define that so well. The best example for the sociological insight is analyzing why that tactic works so well on TikTok now.
Because in the old YouTube days, evidence would stick around. People expected long-form responses. There was a paper trail.
But now his team can use the real existence of, say, 20 fake stories, which the host does a great job documenting. They use that to deflect from the admitted allegations.
It's a specific strategy for high-speed, low-retention platforms. It causes the audience to get confused, forget the original offense, and just focus on the noise and the drama.
The algorithm rewards noise. It rewards novelty, not accountability.
Exactly. If you can generate 20 pieces of distracting content for every one real allegation, the public memory on a platform like TikTok just gets wiped clean every 48 hours.
And you need to explicitly state that. That's the key. That's what turns this from a really detailed history into a mandatory case study on how power works online today.
It's the so what moment. By framing the end of the argument around these specific PR and platform mechanics, the whole thing goes from a deep biography to an essential sociological critique.
That's fantastic, and all the evidence is already there. It's just shifting the final lens of analysis.
Absolutely. And that wraps up our major points. I mean, this submission is so incredibly well researched. The sheer volume of evidence is a monumental achievement.
It really is. Your expertise is your greatest asset here. So the 3 keys are just shift the tone from personal outrage to clinical analysis, streamline the structure by cutting all that tangential commentary, and then elevate the sociological takeaway at the end.
Let the facts speak, tighten the narrative, and really sharpen that platform-specific so what moment. If you make those changes, this piece will have a much wider, more authoritative, and way more impactful reach.
We really want to see this work reach its full potential. We'd invite you to submit the revised work back to us for a follow-up.
Until then, keep digging, keep critiquing, and keep improving. We'll see you next time.